most importantly. We want to welcome from Love Inc. John Marine, who is the executive director for Love Inc., is here with us today. Also, his associates, Karina House, who's on the board of directors, is here. And Patricia Owen is also on the board of directors, and you might know her from the Cookie Walk with Love Inc. I hear she's not doing it any longer, and I says, well, now I have to meet someone new again, so which is certainly fine. But we're going to welcome them today, and John is actually going to address us as a congregation, tell us a little bit about Love Inc., what they're all about, why it's so vital and critical for our local community, and also part of your spiritual journey in Christ, why it's also vital that you participate in helping and serving your neighbors. And without further ado, I won't keep you, but let us welcome John Marine, please.
Is it okay if I remove? Are you okay if I remove? So, hi everyone. Thank you for having us here. We appreciate that, and thank you, Pastor, for inviting us. So, I guess what I'd like to start with is our mission statement. Okay, our mission statement is to engage local churches to transform lives and our community in the name of Christ. Engage local churches, transform lives in the name of Christ. 3 important aspects of why we put it in our mission statement. And I know that there are probably differing levels of understanding about what Love Inc. provides for services. So if you just bear with me, I'd just like to just summarize it, okay? We have a clearinghouse, right? We have a great client services coordinator in Carissa Danielson, and she's been doing it for a while. So what happens is that when a client, or I'm going to call them neighbors, right? We call them neighbors. So when I say neighbors, that equates to a client. When a neighbor needs an immediate need, pantry, personal care pantry, or something like that, they call in to our clearinghouse. Clearinghouse volunteer, which we have a phenomenal volunteers. So I'll try to remember to talk a little bit about what we went through with COVID towards the end. But they take the call and they ask the neighbor for some information to gather it. They return the call, let's say the next day, and they satisfy the immediate need. Now, we have Gap Ministries, which I know that you're probably aware of, but just run through them. There's the furniture, which we deal with Hopewell Reformed Church. There's linens, which we deal with Emmanuel Church. There is personal care pantry with Our Savior Lutheran, right? We have now our hygiene pantry, which is right here with this church. So we thank you. Thank you to Carmen and Debbie for that, for leading that for us. And if there's a resource, we also have a prayer ministry. I never want to forget that. We elevated that to one of our key Gap ministries because we think prayer is so awesome, and I don't have to explain why that is. But we also, if we can't satisfy it, let's say if they call in for some food or something, we always have resources available as far as guiding them to places that will provide that, because there are churches who provide that and other agencies that do provide that. So the initial thing with the neighbor is to provide the immediate need, and we do that, right, the best we can through either our means or somebody else's. But the key thing we want to do now is to try to connect with them to see what else we can do for them. That is what we call redemptive compassion. That is something that in 2019, we sent a group out to be trained at the national headquarters, National Love Inc. And that is to address the holistic biblical approach for client needs, for neighbors' needs, right? The whole person, not just the immediate need, but the whole person. It is critical for us. They came back and we incorporated it in our DNA. So it's now embedded in Mid-Hudson Love Inc. and we guide ourselves on that principle. Now, we've always wanted to help the individual. Don't get me wrong. Help them out wherever we could. But this went even into like our mission statement, right? Engaging local churches to transform lives in our community in the name of Christ. So we incorporated that into our DNA. So with that now, when a neighbor calls in for an immediate need, we want to try to help them the best we can on a transformation process. So we start to talk to them about what they're doing, what church do they go to, and various questions that, again, our volunteer at the clearinghouse talk to them about. And that the important thing about that is it starts to develop the relationship that we want to develop with them, because relationship is key to trying to help them. So they start to trust you, they start to trust the community, and we can start to help them. So they'll call if they're grieving. They might be because of a loss of family member, a friend. Could be that they lost their housing that they were in. It could be an assortment of things. Something happened in the family, dynamics of the family. We have a grieving and loss 1 and 2 class, 2 classes for that. And that helps them through the process. If they're questioning their faith or they want to know more about the basic faith about Jesus, we have a spiritual exploration class that we invite them to, right? If they just want to forget the world for an hour, and they just want to let their hair down, they just want to have some fun, we have classes for that too. And that's like journaling, crafts, which is very popular around the holiday season for them. But the key transformation starts with our Building Hope 1 and 2 classes. Now, Building Hope, we've had around for a while. Mid-Hudson Love Inc.'s been doing that for a while. And that helps them along, maybe re-engaging them or introducing them to life skills, right? Stress relief, renters' rights, goal setting, basic finances, healthy cooking, and exercising. I'm going through, I believe in going through the classes, so I'm going through Building Hope 1 class right now. And it's amazing. It's 5 women in the class and myself, so they like to rank on me a little bit about that. But we're having a lot of fun in that class, and we just completed it. And it's amazing how what you and I might think are pretty basic, like about cooking and eating, that they just find very helpful. They leave with a cookbook, that's generated through the class. They play the games every game has a driven message to them about a given element that I just mentioned, about some type of help. So that's Building Hope 1 and 2. What we now introduced in January was a new class, and it has to really start to center around redemptive compassion concept, and that's affirming potential. Now, affirming potential takes what they've learned in Building Hope 1 and 2, the basics, finance, etc., but it really hones down on the physical, the emotional, relational, and spiritual aspects of their lives. This is an 11-week course with homework, right? It's in-depth course. It's not a light course that they take. So that we get them into that. If they get through that. Towards around the about the 9th week, because I also took that class with them. Around the 9th week, they start to develop, what are your dreams? What are your goals in life? Where do you want to go to? What are some things you want to achieve? And it could be very basic. We just finished our first class, and COVID had an impact on that, but we just finished our first class, and it was to losing weight, to I want to go, I'm involved in this class, and I'd like to get certified in XYZ, right? But I realize I don't have a hard time with it. I don't have a computer. I don't have a Wi-Fi. Can you help me out? And we try to help them out with that. At the end of the class, they have goals identified of what they want to do. And then working with our relational ministry coordinator, who's Joanne Temmel, and she's a new hire in April that we just brought on during COVID. That working with her, they can be assigned a coach. So now they've gone through all the classes for transformation, and now they're assigned a coach to help them. And there's no time limit on these coaches. It could take them depending on the goal, it could take them 2 months, it could take them 6 months, it could take them a year, right? And we're just going through the process. We're tweaking it as we go because we're learning more about it. And so now, if you see what could have been, what a call in for an immediate need, personal care item, now with the help of Love Inc. and the churches. When I say we and us, I'm talking about the collective we. I was talking earlier to Pastor that we have We deal with some 37 churches. 15-ish are what we call partnering churches that we have a more closer tie to. And it is due to those. We have 3 staff members, and they're all part-time, and that includes me. We're all part-time. So this is truly a volunteer, church-driven organization. So we count on you. We count on our churches. We count on our volunteers to administer to the needs of our neighbors. I'd like to just go address COVID real quick if I could. I was about 2 months. I joined. I got executive director in January of this year. In March, we all know we hit COVID. About 2 months into my reign here, I'm still learning the ropes. And now we got COVID going on, and everybody's a deer in the headlight, right? We didn't know what to do, and everybody's wondering what does all of this mean. And so the volunteers and the staff, it was almost a silver lining, if you will, that it threw us in this unknown territory, and I really got to see the staff and the volunteers really at work, and it was amazing. I mean, we were just like everybody else. We were paused. We had to close the office doors, but the lights never went out. And the reason for that is that the volunteers, we had we were still making phone calls to all our neighbors. We made something like 365 calls in about a 2.5 month period. And it wasn't that we could provide so much for them, but it was to let them know that we're thinking of them, that we're encouraging them, praying for them. And again, that's all about the relational aspect of this that we try so hard to establish with our neighbors, right? But there were emergency needs. I mean, they still needed things. It wasn't that COVID now, so everything just shut down. They needed things. So we had volunteers that were willing and said, I'll deliver it. And they would put the mask on, and we take the precautionary measures, but they would go out and deliver these emergency items to these neighbors that were in need, right? There was this woman that was so appreciative of what she was receiving that she said, can you get me a sewing machine so I can make masks? Give the pay forward, right? And we got her a sewing machine. She sat and made masks. It's that type of relationship. During the COVID, we actually had neighbors calling in to ask about the volunteers that they usually talk to at the clearinghouse to see how they were doing. So know that when we help them, we help them. It's for that relationship. It's for the need, but it's for the community. I guess the community would be a good word. The community that we are trying to establish with these. So let them know that they're loved, that we encourage them, we support them through our classes, right? Through our GAP ministries, but through our phone calls. Every phone call with a volunteer at the clearinghouse ends with a prayer. And it's a meaningful prayer. I sit at my desk and I can hear them. I can hear the prayers going on. It's meaningful. Why? Because they have the relationships. They have the relationship with the neighbor. And that's key. I can tell you, I've taken Affirming Potential class and I've taken Building Hope 1 class now. And at the end of Affirming Potential, in the breakout sessions with the guys, the gentlemen in the class, one gentleman came up to me and said, so what's next? It was the last class. So what's next? And I said, well, you're going to meet with Joanne and you're going to be talking. He goes, but when's the next class? And we said, well, we don't know if there is another class. That's what the discussion with Joanne's going to be. And he goes, you don't understand, He goes, I want you to understand that these classes, I regulate my week around these classes. He goes, I need to come to these classes. And why? Because it's not only builds hope. You can see the hope in their eyes, but it builds a community. They're a community there. They come there. People don't look down at them, right? We encourage them. We have laughs with them. They learn stuff, and they break out into these sessions with people who love them, right? And so it's that community that drives them. So I say all of this so that you please understand how much the church involvement and the volunteers mean to us. We could not do this without the churches. So please understand that. Let me just explain some of the things for 2021 that we want to do. I mentioned relational ministry. We hired a relational ministry coordinator in Joanne Temmel. doing a phenomenal job. We are going to have trimester classes, 3 sets of a winter, a spring, and a fall class. Again, COVID was kind of a hiccup for us, but when COVID ended, we opened up our doors on June 15th again, and we kicked right into classes again. And we finished up our winter classes. So we're going to continue that. We're finding that finance is a big area that neighbors need help in. So what we've done is Building Hope 1 and 2. We've kind of changed that a little bit, where instead of having, like, let's say a night of finance, if you will, it's spread out a little bit more across the class so that we're hitting it on the topic talking. But also there's a new course, Faith and Finance, that we're sending people to be trained in the fall here. And we hope to incorporate that in January. And where that will fall it's looking like in between Building Hope classes and Affirming Potential, the new class I talked about. That'll fall in there so that they get the finance education, deeper sense of it. And again, that's not investing or anything. It's just basic budgeting and record keeping and things like that. Redemptive Compassion Study Groups. There is actually a Redemptive Compassion Study Group. I had one at Poughkeepsie United Methodist in March. It takes about five sessions, about 1.5 hour sessions that talk about redemptive compassion. It's a great discussion. Our age group was mid-20s to mid-80s, across 20 people, and there's a great dynamics. Patricia was in it with us. We offer that. I think what I'm going to do is schedule a time in the first quarter, and I'm just going to open it up. All right. But if there's a women's group, a men's group, pastor, maybe your leadership team wants this redemptive compassion, it's about 5 sessions. It's a nice study group, and it's a nice way to further understanding what we're all about, what Love Inc.'s all about. Last one is one that's dear to my heart, is a children's program. By the end of 2021, I want to have at least a first phase of a children's program in place, because we do a phenomenal job with the adults during training and classes and stuff. What I want to do now is during childcare. And by the way, let me just say one more thing. Childcare during our classes is key. Is key. There was a gentleman in our Affirming Potential class that could not come because he had a 10-year-old son, and he wouldn't have been able to come into that class without childcare. So that hour and a half that a person spends in childcare is allowing the adults to get their training. So it's key, and I'll mention more about the volunteers in 1 minute. But developing a children's program, wouldn't it be nice during that time frame to have more of a training, if you will, or more of a knowledge sharing session with the kids, depending on their age, of course. But more important is, wouldn't it be cool to have a teen program, right? Trying to reach them earlier, right? Trying to start training them earlier. So that is what our goal is for 2021. We're going to do that. Habitat for Humanity, Hudson River Housing, other agencies. 2021, we're going to get even closer with them. I've talked with Habitat for Humanity. We're trying to build what we're calling a homeward bound program. And what that's going to do, remember when I talked about going through Affirming Potential and the coaching? Well, let's say that they were able to get certified or achieve a goal that they want to do. We want to develop a handshake for the right situation, a handshake with Habitat, that now maybe that person can go and get a home, right? And that's homeward bound. And but we need to get through a couple of Affirming Potential classes first, so we can get some data and some solidify that program. So that's what we're doing with them. Hudson River Housing, I've met with the executive director there a couple of times, and we found out that we do something similar, but they do some things that we can leverage, and we do some things that they can leverage. I mean, if you think about it, with all these agencies, we're basically dealing with the same population. So wouldn't it be cool if we could gain efficiencies from each other and leverage from each other? So that's going to continue in 2021. And the last thing I'll mention as far as what's going on in 2021 is just a closer partnership with churches, doing these types of things. I love doing these types of things, and I welcome any pastors or any of the volunteers. Get me involved where you want. I also want this to be a two-way street here. So I want to know how Love Inc. might be able to help you further, because I know you guys are helping us, and we appreciate that. So Just to end it, I mentioned our mission statement about engaging local churches to transform lives and our community in the name of Christ, right? You churches are a key ingredient in that. Again, we couldn't do it without you. Volunteer opportunities. If you want to volunteer, I know that there's a number of you doing great things for Love Inc. already. If you do want to volunteer, we have a number of places. I mentioned classes. There's anywhere from drivers to being helping out with the classes, actually the classes themselves, to being a coach. If you have a desire to see what the coaching's all about, to childcare. I just mentioned a situation about childcare. I mean, we have volunteers answering the phones at our clearinghouse. There are things with our facilities. If you're a hands-on type and you nail and hammer type of person, and you want to help out with our facility, we can use help there. So there's a number of options. Please just contact us either at the office or myself, and we'll connect you up. I think that's enough. I think I've taken enough of the time that was allotted me. So there's so much I could talk to you about more. We got a lot going on. I'm very optimistic about 2021, even with the pandemic right probably with us. I think there's a way that we just need to be smarter. Like, we're going to have that cookie walk.
Yeah.
We're going to have that cookie walk because it's important, and it's like a staple in the community now. It's going to be different, but we'll have things like that. So we're going to stay positive about this, and we're going to approach things, and we hope to. I got to get that children's ministry going, so we're going to get that going too. So with that, thank you again for having us here, and thank you, Pastor, for asking us.